My name is Avery Miller. I am 28 years old, and I live in the quiet town where my family runs the Golden Oak Nursing Home. The blue folder slid across the polished wood table. It stopped right in front of my coffee cup. My father didn't look at my face. He looked past me, smiling at my sister, Lena. He said her name like it was a coronation. He told us she was the future of the company. My mother nodded, her eyes shining with pride for the daughter she actually liked. I sat very still. The air in the kitchen felt heavy, but my hands were steady. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just reached into my bag. I took out the heavy ring of keys to the facility. Then, I took out the power of attorney documents. I placed them on the table with a soft click. My parents watched me. They thought this was my surrender. They thought I was finally stepping aside so Lena could shine. They were wrong. I wasn't giving up. I was giving them exactly what they asked for, and I knew they weren't ready to carry it. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Avery Miller. I am 28 years old. I grew up in a house that had two different volumes. There was the loud, bright volume of my sister, Lena, and then there was the silence where I lived. My earliest memory is of a dance recital. I was 5 years old. Lena was 7. She was wearing a pink tutu with sequins that scratched my arm when she brushed past me. She was nervous. My mother was on her knees in the living room, fixing Lena's hair. My father was holding the video camera, checking the battery, making sure the angle was perfect. "Hold still, Lena," my mother said. Her voice was soft, like she was speaking to something fragile and precious. "You're going to be the star, the absolute star." I was sitting on the sofa. I had my shoes on. I was ready to go. I was holding a drawing I had made at school that day. It was a picture of our family standing in front of the nursing home my parents owned. I had used my best crayons. I wanted to show them. "Mom," I said. "Not now, Avery," she said. She didn't turn around. She was putting hairspray on Lena. "We have to focus on your sister. She has a big solo." My father looked at me for a second. "Avery, go get your sister's water bottle. The pink one." I put my drawing down on the sofa cushion. I went to get the water bottle. When I came back, they were already walking out the door. They were laughing. Lena was twirling in the driveway. I ran to catch up, but I left the drawing behind. When we came back hours later, after the flowers and the ice cream celebration for Lena, my father sat on the drawing. He crinkled it. He pulled it out from under him, looked at it for a second, and tossed it into the recycling bin. He didn't even know what it was. That was the pattern. That was my life. Lena floated. She didn't walk, she floated. She went from ballet to gymnastics to cheerleading. Every season there was a new uniform, a new set of fees, a new schedule that dominated our refrigerator door. My parents loved it. They loved the noise of it. They loved telling their friends, "Lena is so talented, she just has this spark, you know." I didn't have a spark, I had a function. Our family business was a nursing home called Golden Oak. Later, we would expand and rename it, but back then, it was just the one building. It smelled like antiseptic and boiled carrots. While Lena was at summer camp riding horses and making friendship bracelets, I was at Golden Oak. I was 10 years old the first time my father put me to work. It wasn't a punishment. It was just an assumption. "Avery, we're short-staffed today," he said. He handed me a stack of napkins. "Go set the tables in the dining room, make sure the forks are on the left." I did it. I liked the order of it. I liked that the residents smiled at me. I liked that if I did a good job, the room looked right. By the time I was 12, I wasn't just setting tables. I was filing paperwork. I was answering the phone when the receptionist took a smoke break. I knew the names of every resident. I knew which ones liked sugar in their tea and which ones were diabetic. One afternoon, I was in the back office, sorting invoices. It was summer. Outside, the sun was blazing. Lena was at the community pool with her friends. My mother came into the office fanning herself. "It's so hot," she complained. She looked at me. I was covered in dust from the filing cabinets. "Avery, did you finish those files?" "Yes," I said. "I also organized the vendor list by date." She nodded absent-mindedly. "Good, you're such a help. I don't know what we'd do without you." It sounded like a compliment. But then she looked at her watch. "Oh goodness, I have to go pick up Lena. She's going to be exhausted from swimming. We're going to stop for pizza on the way home. Do you want me to bring you back a slice? Or are you okay here for another hour?" "I'm okay," I said. "You're so independent," she said, smiling. She grabbed her keys. "That's what I love about you, Avery. You never need anything, you're just easy." She left. I sat in the dusty office. I heard her car drive away. Independent. That was the word they used to cover up the neglect. They called me independent so they didn't have to feel bad about leaving me alone. They convinced themselves that I preferred the silence. They told themselves that Avery liked working, that Avery didn't like parties, that Avery didn't need new clothes because she didn't care about fashion. It wasn't true. I wanted the pink tutu. I wanted the pizza. I wanted someone to look at me and say, "You are the future." But I learned early on that if I cried, I was difficult. If Lena cried, she was sensitive, so I stopped crying. I became useful. Being useful was the only currency I had. High school was worse. Lena was 2 years older, so for a while we were in school together. She was the queen. She was beautiful, with blonde hair that always looked perfect, and a smile that made teachers forgive her for not doing her homework. I was the ghost in the hallway. I was Lena's little sister. "Oh, you're Avery," teachers would say. "I have your sister in my third period. She's such a character." They never said she was smart. They never said she was hardworking. They said she was a character. I got straight A's. I studied until midnight every night. I thought if I was perfect on paper, my parents would notice. When I brought home my report card junior year, a perfect 4 GPA, I put it on the kitchen counter. My mother was on the phone with Lena's drama coach. Lena had gotten the lead in the spring musical, but she was threatening to quit because she didn't like the costume. "We'll buy her a new costume," my father was saying in the background. "Whatever it costs. She has to shine." I stood there for 10 minutes. Finally, my mother hung up. She looked at me. "What's that?" she asked, pointing to the report card. "My grades," I said. She glanced at it. "Oh, good job, honey, very steady. Just like you." Then she turned back to my father. "We need to write a check for the drama department. Lena is really stressed out." Steady, reliable, boring. Lena's life was a series of crises and celebrations. She crashed her car. My parents bought her a safer one. She failed a math class. They hired a private tutor who cost $50 an hour. She broke up with a boyfriend. They took her to a spa weekend to heal her heart. I worked at the facility every weekend. I saved my paycheck. I bought my own car, a used sedan with a dent in the bumper. My parents didn't even know I had bought it until I drove it home. "Oh," my father said, looking at the rusty car in the driveway. "Well, that's very sensible, Avery. Good for you." They didn't offer to pay for insurance. They didn't offer to pay for gas. They were saving their money for Lena's college tuition. She wanted to go to a private arts college out of state. It was incredibly expensive. "We have to support her dreams," my mother told me one night in the kitchen. She was counting out cash for Lena's allowance. "Lena is an artist. She sees the world differently. You, Avery, you're practical. You'll be fine at the state university. It's a good school, and it's close to home so you can keep working at the facility." It wasn't a question, it was a decree. Lena went to the dream school. I went to the local school and worked 30 hours a week at the nursing home to pay for my books. But the real separation happened during my sophomore year of college. I was studying business administration with a focus on healthcare management. I wasn't doing it because I loved it. I was doing it because I saw the cracks in the family business. I saw the way my father forgot to file tax extensions. I saw the way my mother hired staff without checking their references just because she liked their vibe. The business was bleeding money. I could see it. I came home one weekend with a binder. I had done a full analysis of their operating costs for my accounting class project. "Dad," I said. We were in his office. He was staring at a pile of unopened mail. "I think we can save about 15% if we switch food vendors and renegotiate the laundry contract." I did the math. I opened the binder. I showed him the spreadsheets. I showed him the projections. He looked at the pages. He rubbed his eyes. He looked tired. "Avery, please," he said. "Not now, I have a headache." "But Dad, you're losing money," I said. "Look at this line. If you don't change this, you're going to be in the red by December." He sighed. He pushed the binder away. "You worry too much. You're always so serious. It's depressing, Avery. Just handle it if you want. But don't bore me with the details. I'm the owner. I have the vision. You just like the paperwork." He stood up and walked out. I sat there with my binder. "Just handle it." So I did. I called the vendors. I renegotiated the contracts. I forged my father's signature on the new agreements because he wouldn't sit still long enough to sign them. I saved the company $20,000 that year. When the end-of-year financial report came in, my father looked at the numbers. He was surprised. "Hey, we did better than I thought," he said at dinner. It's because I switched the vendors, I said quietly. Well, it was a good year, he said, ignoring me. He raised his wine glass. To the family business. And to Lena, who is coming home next week for winter break. My mother clapped. I can't wait. The house is so quiet without her. It feels empty. I was sitting right there. I was eating the dinner I had cooked. I was paying the bills that kept the lights on. But to them, the house was empty because the noise was gone. I realized then that I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a utility. I was like the refrigerator or the furnace. They only noticed me if I stopped working. As long as I kept humming along, keeping the food cold and the house warm, they could look right through me. Lena came home that winter with a new tattoo and a GPA of 2.5. She told stories about parties and art galleries. My parents hung on her every word. I'm thinking of changing majors, Lena announced. Maybe fashion marketing, or maybe interior design. I have a really good eye. You do, sweetheart, my mother said. You have a gift. I looked at my hands. I had a degree in business almost finished. I had a certification in healthcare compliance. I was 20 years old and I was running $1 million facility in everything but name, but I didn't have a gift. I just had a burden. I looked at Lena. She was glowing. She didn't know the business was almost bankrupt 6 months ago. She didn't know I had fired a nurse for stealing medication because my father was too scared to do it. She didn't know anything. She smiled at me across the table. Avery, you look tired. You should smile more, you'll get wrinkles. I'm fine, I said. You work too hard, Lena said, taking a bite of the roast beef. Mom, Dad, doesn't she work too hard? You should take a break, Avery. Be fun for once. My father laughed. Avery doesn't know how to be fun, she's our little worker bee. He meant it affectionately maybe, but it felt like a slap, a worker bee, an insect. Something that works until it dies, easily replaced by another worker bee, all to serve the queen. I put my fork down. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table, I just nodded. Someone has to do the work, I said. They didn't hear the edge in my voice. They just nodded and went back to talking about Lena's potential career in fashion. That night, I went to the facility. It was midnight. I unlocked the door with my key. I walked through the dark hallways. I went to the office and sat in my father's chair. I looked at the framed photo on his desk. It was a picture of the four of us. I was in the back, blurry, half hidden by my father's shoulder. Lena was in the front, center in focus, smiling brightly. I took the photo out of the frame. I looked at it for a long time. Then I put it back, but I slid it in backward. So all you could see was the brown cardboard backing. It was a small act of rebellion. But it was the beginning. By the time I was 24, the nursing home wasn't just my job. It was my skeleton. It held me up and I held it up. My parents were technically in charge. Their names were on the deeds, the licenses, and the bank accounts. But they were crumbling. My father was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's. It started with a tremor in his hand, then a shuffle in his walk. He couldn't sign checks legibly anymore. He got confused during staff meetings. He would start talking about regulations from the 1990s that didn't exist anymore. My mother was overwhelmed. She wasn't a businesswoman, she was a socialite who happened to own a business. When the regulators came, state inspectors with clipboards and frowns, she would panic. She would try to offer them coffee and charm them. You cannot charm a state inspector who just found a discrepancy in the medication logs. So I stepped in. I moved back home after college. Lena was still finding herself in New York City, living in an apartment my parents paid for, trying to launch a jewelry line that never made a profit. I was in the back office of Golden Oak, surrounded by stacks of paper. The first major crisis happened on a Tuesday in November. It was raining. I was in the kitchen at the facility, checking the inventory, when the director of nursing ran in. Her face was pale. Avery, she said, the state surveyors are here, 3 of them, they're demanding to see the administrator. My father was the administrator of record, but he was at home, asleep in his recliner. He hadn't been to the facility in 3 days. I'll handle it, I said. I walked into the lobby. The surveyors looked serious. They were wearing raincoats and holding tablets. I'm Avery, I said. My voice was calm. I'm the operations manager. How can I help you? We need the administrator, the lead surveyor said. We have a complaint about staffing ratios. He's in a meeting off-site, I lied. I lied smoothly, without blinking. I have full authority to assist you. Here are the staffing logs for the last 6 months. Here are the payroll records. Here is our census data. I handed them the files. I had prepared them weeks ago, just in case. I knew where every piece of paper was. I knew the regulations better than they did. I walked them through the facility. I answered every question. When they pointed out a cracked floor tile in room 104, I had the maintenance guy fix it before they left the room. When they asked about a specific patient's care plan, I recited it from memory. They stayed for 2 days. They dug through everything. They were looking for a reason to fine us to shut us down. My parents stayed home. My mother called me once. "Are they gone yet?" she whispered into the phone. "Your father is so stressed, Avery, he can't handle this." "I know," I said. "Stay home, I've got it." "You're a lifesaver," she said. "Make sure you smile at them." I didn't smile, I worked. At the end of the 2 days, the surveyors sat in the conference room. I sat across from them. My hands were folded on the table. "We found 0 deficiencies," the lead surveyor said. He looked impressed. "That's rare. Your documentation is impeccable. This facility is run very well." "Thank you," I said. "You should be the administrator," he added. "You know this place inside out." I didn't say anything, I just nodded. When I went home that night, exhausted, my parents were watching TV. Lena was on FaceTime on the iPad, showing them a new scarf she bought. "Oh, Avery's home," Lena chirped. "Hi, Avery. Mom says you had a busy couple of days." "Yeah," I said. "I dropped my keys on the counter. We passed, 0 deficiencies." "That's great," my father said, not taking his eyes off the TV. I knew we ran a tight ship. He hadn't set foot in the building. He didn't know the surveyors' names. He didn't know that I had stayed up until 4 a.m. rewriting the emergency evacuation protocols because the old ones were outdated. "I need to talk to you guys," I said. "About the business," my mother sighed. "Can it wait, honey? Lena is telling us about her date." "No," I said, "it can't wait." I turned off the TV. The room went silent. Lena froze on the iPad screen. "Dad can't be the administrator anymore," I said. "It's illegal if he's not actually there. We need to appoint someone else. Me." "You," my father said. He looked offended. "I built that place, Avery. It's my legacy." "I know," I said, "but you're not running it." "I am. I need the title so I can sign the documents legally. Otherwise, next time we get fined, big fines." They looked at each other. They didn't want to give up control. To them, the title was status. It was who they were. "Fine," my father grumbled. "You can be the assistant administrator, but I stay on the license." "That's not enough," I said, "but it's a start." I took the promotion. I didn't get a raise. I didn't get a party. I just got more work. For the next 3 years, I was the machine. We had a financial crisis when the insurance reimbursement rates dropped. We lost 20% of our revenue overnight. My parents panicked. They talked about selling the house. They talked about bankruptcy. I spent 3 weeks analyzing the budget. I found waste everywhere. We were paying for a marketing firm that did nothing. We were overpaying for medical supplies. We had 3 distinct phone lines we didn't use. I cut it all. I fired the marketing firm. I negotiated a new deal with a different supply company. I streamlined the kitchen menu to reduce food waste without lowering the quality for the residents. I saved the business. Again. When I showed them the new balance sheet, showing that we were profitable again, my mother cried. "Oh, thank God," she said. "We can keep the beach house." That was her concern, the beach house, not the employees' jobs, not the residents' care. The beach house where Lena liked to spend her summers. Lena, she was the shadow that hung over everything I did. She came home for Thanksgiving that year. She was 30 now. She had pivoted again. Now she was a lifestyle consultant. I didn't know what that meant, and I was pretty sure she didn't either, but she looked expensive. Her hair was perfect. Her clothes were tailored. We were sitting at the dinner table. My parents were slicing the turkey. "So," Lena said, looking at me, "Mom tells me you're basically running the whole show over at the nursing home now." "I am," I said. "That must be so. Intense," she said. She made a face like she smelled something bad. "Dealing with old people all day, and the smell. I don't know how you do it, Avery. You have such a strong stomach." "It's not about a stomach," I said. "It's about caring for people." Right, she said dismissively. "But it's not very glamorous, is it? I mean, do you ever want to do something bigger, something more creative?" "It is creative," I said. "Solving problems is creative." She laughed, a tinkling, condescending laugh. "Okay, Avery, if you say so, I just think you're wasting your potential. You were always so smart. You could be a CEO of a real company." "I am running a real company," I said. My voice was tight. "You know what I mean," she said. "A brand, something sexy." my father chimed in. Lena has a point, Avery, you should get out more. Meet a nice guy, you're married to that building. I looked at them. They were eating the food I paid for, they were sitting in the house I saved, and they looked at me with pity. They didn't see the backbone, they just saw the help. That was the dynamic. I was the engine room, dirty, loud, essential, hidden below the deck. Lena was the figurehead painted gold, staring at the horizon, doing absolutely nothing but looking pretty. And then the real shift began. It started slowly. My parents began including Lena on email chains she had no business being on. CC, Lena, my father would write, just so she's in the loop. Why? I asked him once. She lives in New York. She doesn't know what a Medicaid cost report is. She's family, he said. She's an owner, technically, in the trust. She should know what's going on. Then, Lena started visiting the facility, not to work, to observe. She would walk in wearing high heels that clicked loudly on the linoleum. She would walk into the nurse's station and start chatting, distracting the staff while they were trying to pour medications. Oh, I love your scrubs, she would say to a nurse who was trying to calculate an insulin dose. Are those figs? They look so comfy. I would have to usher her out. Lena, they're working. Come to my office. She would sit in my office, spinning in the chair. You're so uptight, Avery. The staff loves me. I bring energy. You bring distraction, I said. Mom and Dad think I should be more involved, she dropped casually one day. Since I'm moving back home. I froze. You're moving back. Yeah, she said. New York is exhausting, and honestly, I think Golden Oak needs a refresh. It's so beige. I have ideas, branding ideas. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. Branding ideas. We don't need branding, I said. We need compliance, we need staffing, we need high acuity care. Boring, she sang. We need a vision, Dad agrees with me. She was right, Dad did agree. The next week I walked into the lobby and saw a photographer. He was setting up lights. Lena was standing there, wearing a white blazer, looking authoritative. My parents were standing next to her, beaming. What is this? I asked. Website photos, my mother said. We're updating the website. Doesn't Lena look professional? Why wasn't I told? I asked. Oh, we didn't want to bother you, my father said. You're always so busy with the paperwork. Lena is good at the visual stuff. She's going to be the face of the new campaign. The face, I said. She doesn't work here. She's a consultant, my father said. Director of. What did we call it, Lena? Director of Community Engagement and Vision, Lena said, striking a pose for the camera. I stood there, holding a stack of payroll checks. I was wearing my practical gray slacks and a sensible blouse. I looked like what I was, the person who did the work. Lena looked like a model pretending to be a doctor on a TV show. Smile, Avery, the photographer said. Jump in the back there. No, I said. Come on, don't be a spoilsport, my mother said. I turned around and walked away. I went to my office and closed the door. I could hear them laughing in the lobby. I could hear the camera shutter clicking. Click, click, click. They were rewriting the story. In their version, Lena was the leader. Lena was the vision. I was just the mechanic in the back room. I sat at my desk. I looked at the pile of work I had to do. State reports, budget forecasts, staff evaluations. I picked up a pen. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just started writing. But this time, I wasn't writing for them. I was writing down everything I did. Every task, every password, every contact. I didn't know why yet. It was just an instinct. A survival instinct. The invisible backbone was getting tired of holding up the body that didn't know it existed. The replacement didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a firing squad. It was a slow erosion, like water wearing down a stone. It started with the brochure. A week after the photo shoot, a box arrived at the facility. It was heavy. I signed for it at the front desk. I cut the tape with a box cutter and opened the flaps. Inside were stacks of glossy, high-quality brochures. They smelled like fresh ink. I picked one up. The cover was a photo of Lena. She was standing in front of the Golden Oak sign, but the sign had been photoshopped. It didn't say Golden Oak Nursing and Rehabilitation anymore. It said the Golden Oak Living Experience. Lena was looking off into the distance, smiling a soft, visionary smile. Beneath her photo, in bold gold letters, it said, Future Leadership, New Vision. I opened the brochure. My name wasn't in it. My father's name was there as founder. My mother's name was there as co-founder. Lena was listed as Executive Director of Vision. I was the administrator. I was the one whose license hung on the wall in the lobby. I was the one legally responsible for every life in the building, and I wasn't even mentioned. I walked into my father's office. He was showing the brochure to the head of maintenance, looking proud. "Dad," I said. I held up the brochure. "What is this?" He looked up. "Oh, aren't they beautiful? Lena designed the layout herself." "My name isn't in here," I said. "It lists Lena as executive director. That's not a real title. And I'm the administrator. If the state sees this, they'll be confused. You can't advertise false leadership." He waved his hand at me. "Stop being so technical, Avery. It's marketing. It's about a feeling. Lena represents the youth, the energy. Well, you're the mechanics. People don't want to see the mechanics. They want to see the shiny car." "I am the administrator," I repeated. "I run this place." "And you'll keep running it," he said, sounding annoyed. "Nobody is taking your job. We're just rebranding. Lena is the face, you're the hands. It's a partnership. A partnership. But in a partnership, both people know what's going on." The next week, the closed-door meetings started. Usually, the conference room door was always open. I kept it that way. I wanted the staff to know they could come to me. But on a Tuesday morning, I walked toward the conference room and found the door shut. The blinds were pulled down. I could hear voices inside. My father. My mother, Lena. And a man's voice I didn't recognize. I knocked and opened the door. They all stopped talking and looked at me. There was a blueprint spread out on the table. "Oh," my mother said. She looked guilty. "What's going on?" I asked. "Who is this?" "This is Mr. Henderson," Lena said. She didn't look guilty. She looked annoyed that I had interrupted. "He's an architect." "An architect?" I stepped into the room. "Why do we need an architect?" "We're discussing the expansion," my father said. "What expansion?" I asked. "We don't have the budget for an expansion. We just stabilized the cash flow last quarter." "Please, Avery," Lena sighed. She rolled her eyes. "You're always so negative. Mr. Henderson is sketching out a concept for a wellness wing. Massage therapy, a juice bar, a yoga studio for the residents." "Our residents are 85 years old on average," I said. "Most of them use walkers. They don't need a juice bar, they need physical therapy and wound care." "See," Lena pointed at me. "This is what I mean, Dad. She has no vision. She wants to keep this place a warehouse for old people. I want to make it a destination." My father looked at me. "Avery, maybe you should give us some space. We're just brainstorming. We don't need the compliance police right now." "But Dad, close the door, please," he said. His voice was hard. I stood there for a second. I looked at the three of them. They were a family unit. I was the intruder. I stepped back. I closed the door. I went to my office. I sat down. I didn't work. I just stared at the wall. They were planning construction on a building I managed, using money I had saved, and they didn't even invite me to the meeting. The emails stopped coming next. I used to be CC'd on everything. Every bank notification, every vendor email, every complaint. Suddenly, my inbox was quiet. I checked the server settings. I thought maybe my email was broken. It wasn't. They had simply started a new email thread without me. Project Renaissance, they called it. I found out because the architect, Mr. Henderson, accidentally CC'd me on a reply. Subject: Project Renaissance, budget approval. I opened the attachment. It was a budget proposal for the new wing. $2 million. $2 million. We didn't have $2 million. We had maybe $300,000 in the operating reserve. I felt a cold sweat break out on my neck. If they tried to borrow this money, they would use the facility as collateral. If the wellness wing failed, and it would fail, the bank would take the building. The residents would be evicted. The staff would lose their jobs. I printed the email. I walked straight to my parents' house that night. They were having dinner. Lena was there, of course. They were drinking expensive red wine. I threw the paper on the table. It landed in the mashed potatoes. "You can't do this," I said. "Hello to you too, Avery," my mother said, wiping the potato off the paper. $2 million, I said. "Are you insane? The bank will never approve this." "They already did," Lena said. She smiled. It was a shark smile. "Daddy and I went to the bank yesterday. We met with the vice president." "How?" I looked at my father. "The financials don't support a loan that size." Lena showed them the projections, my father said. He looked a little drunk. She made a very compelling presentation about the future market. "The boomer generation wants luxury, Avery, not hospitals." "Projections aren't real money," I shouted. It was the first time I had raised my voice in years. "You can't pay a mortgage with projections." "Stop shouting," my mother snapped. "You're upsetting your father. Why can't you just be happy for your sister? She's taking initiative. She's trying to grow the family legacy." "She's going to bankrupt the family legacy," I said. That's enough, my father said. He slammed his hand on the table. I am the owner. I make the decisions. You are the administrator. Your job is to run the building we give you. If we give you a bigger building with a yoga studio, you run that. Do you understand? I'm trying to protect you, I said. My voice shook. We don't need your protection, Lena said softly. We need your support, or maybe we need someone who believes in the vision. The threat hung in the air. Maybe we need someone else. I looked at them. They truly believed it. They believed Lena's fairy tale because it was prettier than my reality. They wanted to be the owners of a luxury resort, not a nursing home, and I was the only thing reminding them of the unglamorous truth. Okay, I said. Okay, I turned and walked out. The final blow came a month later. My mother called me. She sounded excited. Avery, we're planning a big gala, she said, to announce the rebranding. The Golden Oak Renaissance. We rented the ballroom at the Marriott. Okay, I said. Do you need me to check the contracts? No, Lena has handled all the fun stuff, she said. But we need you to handle the guest list for the staff. You know, invite the nurses and the aides, but tell them to dress appropriately. No scrubs. Sure, I said. And Avery. Yes, we're going to have a presentation. Dad is going to speak. Then he's going to introduce Lena as the new leader of the expansion. We're going to give her a symbolic key to the facility. It's going to be very touching. A key. I had the real keys in my pocket. I had carried them for 5 years. I had answered the alarms at 3 a.m. A symbolic key, I repeated. Yes, it's gold-plated, my mother said. Anyway, we want you to be there, of course. Maybe you can help check people in at the registration table. Since you know all the employees' names, check people in. At the event celebrating the business I saved, I was being asked to work the door. I'll think about it, I said. Don't be difficult, she said. It's a family celebration. I hung up. I was at the facility. It was late. The office was dark. I saw a folder on my father's desk. It was labeled Lena Confidential. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. I opened it. It wasn't just the loan documents. It was a restructuring plan. I read the pages. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was a draft of a new corporate structure. In this new structure, Lena was the CEO. My parents were the board of directors, and there was a box for operations manager. The salary listed was 20% less than what I was making now, and next to the title, someone had written in red pen, my father's handwriting. Avery, if she stays. If not, hire external. They had already decided. They weren't just adding Lena. They were demoting me. They were planning to cut my pay to fund Lena's salary. They were ready to replace me if I didn't accept it. I looked at the date on the document. They had signed it yesterday. They had signed my demotion a day before asking me to work the door at the party. I sat there for a long time. The hum of the refrigerator in the break room was the only sound. I didn't cry. The time for crying was over. Something inside me clicked. It was the sound of a lock turning. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I wasn't their worker bee. I was a liability to their fantasy, but they forgot one thing. I wasn't just the administrator. I was the system. I knew every password. I knew every regulator's direct line. I held the logins for the Medicare portal. I held the encryption keys for the patient database. I was the signatory on the compliance affidavits. They thought they bought a building. They didn't understand that a nursing home isn't a building. It's a license. It's a record of compliance. It's a structure of laws and protocols. And I own the structure. I stood up. My legs felt strong. I walked out of the office and climbed the stairs to the second floor, to a small storage room that nobody used. I had a private server back up there. I had set it up years ago, just for redundancy. I sat down on a dusty box. I took out my tablet. I opened a blank document. I didn't write a resignation letter. I started to document. I documented 10 years of work. Item 1, provider agreements. Item 2, state survey plans of correction. Item 3, vendor contracts negotiated by Avery. Item 4, intellectual property, the Harbor Bridge compliance system. Wait, that was it. I had created a specific system for tracking patient care. I called it the Harbor Bridge method. I had written the code for the database myself. I had copyrighted the manual 2 years ago, just to be safe. I had paid the fee with my own credit card. The facility used my system to run. Without it, they couldn't bill Medicare. They couldn't track meds. And the system belonged to me, not the company, me. I looked at the screen. The blue light reflected in my eyes. They wanted Lena to be the future? Fine. I would give them the future they designed. A beautiful building with no engine. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to fight at the gala. I was going to pack my things. I was going to separate my spine from their body, and I was going to watch them try to walk without me. I typed for hours. I organized everything. I wasn't preparing for revenge. Revenge is messy. Revenge is emotional. I was preparing for justice. And justice, like a good audit, is cold, hard, and undeniable. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen. My mother was drinking coffee. My father was reading the newspaper. Lena was still asleep. "Good morning," I said. My mother looked up, surprised. She expected me to be angry about the gala. She expected me to be sulking about the check-in table assignment. "Good morning," she said cautiously. "You're up early." "I have a lot of work to do," I said. I poured myself a cup of coffee. My hand was steady. "I want to make sure the files are in order before the big rebranding." My father lowered his paper. He smiled. "That's the spirit, Avery. I knew you'd come around. It's going to be a great night for the family." "Yes," I said. "It will be memorable." I drank my coffee. I looked at them. I didn't feel the old ache in my chest. Usually, seeing them ignore me hurt. Today, it felt like watching actors on a screen. They were playing a part. I was the audience. And I was about to leave the theater. I finished my coffee. "I'm going to the office." "On a Saturday?" my mother asked. "There's a lot of cleanup to do," I said. I drove to the facility. I didn't go to my office. I went to the medical director's office. Dr. Hale was there. He was 60 years old, a grumpy man who hated bureaucracy but loved the patients. He respected me. He tolerated my parents. He looked up when I walked in. "Avery. What's wrong? You look focused." I shut the door. I sat down. "Dr. Hale, I need to ask you a hypothetical question," I said. He took off his glasses. "Go ahead. If the administration of this facility changed, if the operational systems were removed, would you stay?" He frowned. "What do you mean removed?" "I mean the compliance protocols, the Harbor Bridge system I built, the way we track meds, the way we handle state reporting. If that was gone and the leadership was just my parents and Lena," he laughed, a short, dry bark. "If you leave, Avery, and take your brain with you, I'd resign within the hour. Your father thinks a nursing home is a real estate investment. He doesn't know a chaotic code blue from a ham sandwich. And your sister," he shook his head. "She thinks DNR stands for Do Not Rush." "Okay," I said. "That's what I needed to know." "Are you leaving?" he asked. His eyes were sharp. "I'm not just leaving," I said. "I'm moving." I didn't tell him everything. Not yet, but I needed to know I had allies. Next, I drove to the city. I had an appointment with Miss Rowan. She was an intellectual property lawyer I had met at a compliance seminar 3 years ago. I had kept her card. Her office was glass and steel. It was quiet. "Avery," she said, shaking my hand. "It's been a while. How is Golden Oak?" "Golden Oak is changing," I said. I sat down and pulled out my tablet. "I need to protect something." I showed her the copyright registration for the Harbor Bridge compliance system. I showed her the credit card statements proving I paid for the software development myself. I showed her the timestamps on the code, proving I wrote it on weekends and nights off the clock. "This is my intellectual property," I said. "Correct." She studied the documents. She nodded. "It appears so. You developed it independently, you paid for the copyright, and there is no clause in your employment contract assigning inventions to the company. In fact," she looked at my employment contract, which I had brought. "You don't even have a formal employment contract. You're an at-will employee." "My parents don't believe in contracts for family," I said. "They think loyalty is enough." "Their mistake," she said. "So, you own the system. What do you want to do?" "I want to license it," I said, "but not to Golden Oak. I want to create a separate entity, a non-profit foundation, the Harbor Bridge Foundation. I want to transfer all the rights to that foundation." "In Golden Oak, they are currently using my system without a license," I said. "I've allowed it because I run it, but if I stop running it, they are using unauthorized software to manage medical records. That's a violation of HIPAA and state law." Miss Rowan looked at me. She smiled. It was a cold, professional smile. "I see. You want to evict them from your brain." "Exactly," I said. "We can have the foundation paperwork filed by Monday," she said. "It will be a shell company for now, holding the IP. But legally, it will be the owner." "Do it," I said. I drove home. I felt lighter. For the next week, I played the game. I went to work. I smiled at the staff. I answered emails, but I wasn't doing my usual work. I was cleaning house. I went through the physical files. I took every binder that I had created, my personal notes, my strategy guides, my contact lists for the state inspectors. I put them in boxes. Spring cleaning, the receptionist asked. Something like that, I said. I took the boxes to my car. Trunk by trunk, I emptied my office of me. By Thursday, my office looked the same to a stranger, but to me it was empty. The diploma on the wall was just paper. The computer on the desk was wiped of my personal shortcuts. The Harbor Bridge software was still running on the server, but I had changed the administrative password. I set the new password to something simple, something they would never guess. Independent. On Friday, the day before the gala, my parents were in a frenzy. The flowers are the wrong shade of cream, my mother was shouting into the phone in the living room. Lena needs the limo at 6, my father yelled. I came down the stairs, I was wearing my work clothes. Avery, my mother said, can you run to the printers? The programs have a typo, they spelled Renaissance wrong. I can't, I said. I have to go to the bank. The bank, she looked annoyed. What for? Personal business, I said. Can it wait? No, I said. I walked out. I didn't go to the bank. I went to the post office. I had a stack of letters. They were resignation letters. But not just a simple I quit. They were notifications. One for the State Department of Health, notification of change in administrator. One for the bank, removal of personal guarantee. I had co-signed a small line of credit years ago. I was removing my name. One for the insurance company. I didn't mail them yet. I just bought the stamps. I put them in my bag. Then I went to the facility for the last time as the administrator. It was 5 p.m. The shift change was happening. The staff looked tired. I walked to the nurses' station. Hey guys, I said. They looked up. Sarah, the head nurse, smiled. Hey Avery, you coming to the big party tomorrow? I'll be there, I said. We heard there's going to be a big announcement, she said. Are they finally making you a partner? You deserve it. I looked at her. She was a good nurse. She had 3 kids. She needed this job. Something like that, I said. Listen, Sarah, no matter what happens, you guys are the heart of this place, okay? Just remember that. The care comes from you, not the office. She looked confused. Is everything okay? Everything is going to be exactly as it should be, I said. I walked away. I went to my office. I took one last look. I saw the ghost of the girl who had sat there for 10 years. The girl who ate lunch at her desk. The girl who missed her friend's wedding because the fire alarm system needed testing. The girl who thought that if she just worked hard enough, her parents would love her. I felt a surge of sadness. Not for the job, but for that girl. I'm sorry, I whispered to the empty room. I should have saved you sooner. I left the keys on the desk. No, wait, not yet. I picked the keys back up. The outline said I would give them at the party. That was better. That was public. I put the keys in my pocket. I locked the door. When I got home, the house was full of garment bags. Lena's dress had arrived. It was a gold sequined gown. Avery, Lena shouted from upstairs. Come zip me up. I went upstairs. Lena was standing in front of the mirror. The dress was tight. It glittered under the lights. Careful, she said as I pulled the zipper. Don't snag it with your rough hands. My hands weren't rough. They were capable. But to her, anything that worked was rough. It fits well, I said. It's perfect, she said. She admired herself. Tomorrow is going to be amazing, Avery. I have so many ideas. I'm going to change everything. I know you will, I said. And don't worry, she said, looking at me in the reflection. Her voice dropped to a fake whisper. I told Dad we should keep you on, even with the salary cut. I told him, Avery needs us. So, you're welcome. She thought she was saving me. She thought she was being benevolent by letting me keep my scraps. Thank you, Lena, I said. That clarifies everything. Clarifies what? My decision. She didn't ask what I meant. She just turned to check her profile in the mirror. I went to my room. I sat at my desk. I had one more thing to prepare, the red envelope. I took out a piece of thick, expensive stationery. I took out my favorite pen. I needed to write the letter that I would hand her tomorrow. I closed my eyes. I thought about the future leadership brochure. I thought about the meeting with the architect. I thought about the backwards photo in my father's office. I didn't want to write a rant. I didn't want to call her names. I wanted to explain the weight of the crown she had just stolen. I started writing. Dear Lena, you always wanted to be the star. You always wanted the spotlight. Today you have it. I stopped. I needed to be precise. I wrote about the difference between a building and a business. A building is just bricks. A business is 1,000 invisible threads holding those bricks together. I have been holding those threads for 10 years. My hands are tired. You said I had rough hands. You were right. They are rough because they have been holding up the ceiling so you could dance on the floor. I wrote about the harbor bridge. You cannot run a ship without a rudder. I am taking the rudder. I finished the letter. I folded it, I put it in the red envelope, I sealed it with wax. It felt old-fashioned. It felt final. I placed 3 items on my dresser for tomorrow morning, the heavy ring of keys, the folder with the power of attorney documents revoking my rights, the red envelope. I turned off the light. I lay in bed. Downstairs, I could hear my parents laughing. They were toasting with champagne. They were toasting to the future. I smiled in the dark. They had no idea that the future had already packed its bags and was leaving at sunrise. The victim was gone. The architect was awake. And tomorrow, the building would fall. The week leading up to the gala wasn't just about cleaning out my office. It was about building the trap. Or rather, building the lifeboat that I would sail away in, leaving them on the sinking ship they had drilled holes in. I sat in Miss Rowan's conference room. It was Monday, 5 days before the party. The table was covered in paperwork. "This is aggressive, Avery," Miss Rowan said. She adjusted her glasses. "You are effectively stripping the operational capacity of Golden Oak and housing it under this new entity, the Harbor Bridge Foundation." "Is it legal?" I asked. "Completely," she said. "You created the systems, you own the IP, you are simply formalizing that ownership. The genius is in the leasing agreement." She slid a document toward me. "The foundation," she explained, pointing to the diagram, "will hold the rights to the compliance software, the staff training manuals, the vendor negotiation protocols, and the Harbor Bridge Quality Assurance certification. If a facility wants to use these tools, which Golden Oak currently does, they must be a certified partner of the foundation." "And to be a certified partner," I asked. "They must meet strict leadership standards," she said. "The administrator of record must be certified by the foundation. If the administrator is replaced by someone uncertified, the license to use the system is revoked immediately." I smiled. It was a cold, small smile. "So," I said, "if I leave and Lena takes over, she isn't certified." "Correct," Miss Rowan said. "And since Golden Oak's entire billing and medical record workflow relies on your software, the moment you leave, they are operating blindly. They would need to pay the foundation a massive licensing fee to keep using it, or stop using it entirely. And if they stop using it, they breach their state contract," she said. "Because their plan of correction with the state specifically lists Harbor Bridge methodology as their compliance framework." It was perfect. I wasn't stealing the building. I wasn't stealing the money. I was taking the brain. I was leaving the body, but I was taking the ability to move, speak, and think. "Now," Miss Rowan said, sliding a stack of papers into a folder, "you need signatures. The owners of Golden Oak need to acknowledge that the Harbor Bridge system is third-party intellectual property. They need to sign a waiver stating they understand they do not own the code or the manuals." "They'll sign," I said. "Are you sure it's a significant concession?" "They don't read," I said. "They trust me to handle the boring stuff. To them, this is just more red tape." I took the documents. They felt heavy. They felt like a weapon. That night, I went to my parents' house for dinner. It was strategy night for the gala. The table was covered in fabric swatches and menu samples. My father was complaining about the price of the shrimp cocktail. My mother was worried about the centerpieces. Lena was sketching a logo on a napkin. "It needs to be elegant," Lena was saying. "Like a swan, Golden Oak, rising." "It's a tree, Lena," I said. I sat down. "Oaks don't rise like birds," she glared at me. "It's a metaphor, Avery. God, you're so literal." "Dad," I said, ignoring her. I pulled the folder out of my bag. "I need you to sign some compliance updates before the gala. The state needs to know we've updated our vendor protocols." "Now?" he asked. He was eating a bread roll. "Can it wait until next week? I'm trying to decide between the salmon and the steak." "It has to be done before the fiscal quarter ends," I lied. "It's just standard IP acknowledgement, basically saying that we use specific software for our records. It keeps the auditors happy." "Auditors," he groaned. "You and your auditors, you're obsessed." He wiped his hands on a napkin. He didn't even pick up the document to read the title. "Where do I sign?" he asked. "Here," I pointed to the line. "And here, and Mom needs to sign here as secretary." He scribbled his name, Robert J. Miller. He pushed the paper to my mother. "Sign this, Sharon. Avery says it's for the state." My mother signed it without looking up from the flour samples. Make sure we tell the florist to use the ivory roses, not the white ones, she said. White looks cheap. And Lena, I said. Lena looked up. Me, why me? You're a board member now, right? I said. Or you will be on Saturday. We need to show the state that the incoming leadership is aware of our operational systems. She smiled. She liked that, incoming leadership. Of course, she said. She took the pen. She signed with a flourish, a big, loopy signature. I took the papers back. I checked the signatures, they were valid. They had just signed a document acknowledging that the Harbor Bridge Foundation, owned by me, was the sole owner of the facility's operating system, and that Golden Oak had no permanent rights to it. Thanks, I said. I put the folder back in my bag. You're such a grind, Avery, Lena said. We're talking about a party and you're doing paperwork. Someone has to ensure there's a business left to celebrate, I said. Don't be dramatic, my father said. The business is fine, it's solid as a rock because I built it. I didn't correct him. I didn't say you built the shell. I built the engine. I just ate my salad. The next day I met with Dr. Hale. I needed to solidify the second pillar of the foundation. We met at a diner halfway between the facility and his house. He was drinking black coffee. So, he said, Miss Rowan sent me the bylaws. You want me to be the chairman of the board for this new foundation? I do, I said. I need someone with medical credibility, someone the state respects. And what do I have to do? Nothing yet, I said. Just exist. But on Saturday night, after I resign, the foundation becomes active. On Monday morning, you will receive a notification that Golden Oak is no longer a certified partner. As the chairman, you will have the authority to recommend that we pull our medical direction if standards aren't met. He looked at me over the rim of his cup. You're really going to crash the plane, aren't you? I'm not crashing it, I said. I'm just taking back my pilot's license. If they can fly it themselves, good for them. They can't, he said, and you know it. I know, I said, but they need to learn. They've treated the facility like an ATM for 20 years. They've treated me like a servant. I'm stopping the service. He nodded slowly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a pen. I'm in, he said. I'm tired of your father telling me how to practice medicine. And I'm tired of watching them overlook you. He signed the acceptance letter. The Harbor Bridge Foundation was now real. It had a president, me, a chairman, Dr. Hale, and a legal counsel, Miss Rowan. It owned the brain of Golden Oak. I spent the next 2 days quietly transferring data. I sat in my office with the door locked. I copied the intricate scheduling algorithms I had written. I copied the database of temp agencies I used when we were short-staffed. I copied the personal notes on every regulator, which inspector liked coffee, which one was strict about fire codes, which one you had to call sir. These weren't company records. These were my relationships, my knowledge. I deleted them from the company server. I left the basic files. The patient names, the billing history that belonged to the company. I wasn't a criminal, but the tools to manage them, gone. The Harbor Bridge icon on the desktop remained, but I changed the path. Now when you clicked it, it didn't open the full management suite. It opened a login screen that required a foundation key. A key they didn't have. On Friday afternoon, the day before the gala, I did one last walkthrough of the facility. I walked down the east wing. Mr. Henderson, a resident in room 204, waved at me. Hey, boss lady, he said. I stopped. I held his hand. It was papery and warm. Hi, Mr. Henderson, I said. How's the hip? Better, he said. Nurse Sarah gave me that extra pillow you ordered. Worked like a charm. Good, I said. I felt a lump in my throat. I loved these people. I wasn't leaving them because I didn't care. I was leaving them because I couldn't protect them anymore if I stayed powerless. I had to break the system to fix it. You take care, okay? I told him. I'm not going anywhere, he chuckled. I walked back to the lobby. The new brochure was sitting on the counter. Lena's face smiled at me. Future leadership. I looked at it. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt cold determination. You want the future? I thought. Here it comes. I drove to the lawyer's office one last time to drop off the signed documents. It's done, I told Miss Rowan. Excellent, she said. The foundation is incorporated. As of midnight tonight, the intellectual property rights are officially transferred. Golden Oak is operating on a grace period that expires. Well, whenever you say it does. It expires tomorrow night, I said. At the gala, she looked at me with respect. You're a very dangerous woman, Avery. I'm glad you're on my side. I'm not dangerous, I said. I'm just finished. I drove home. The sun was setting. The sky was a bruised purple. I felt like the calm before a hurricane. I walked into the house. It was chaotic. My mother was screaming about a stain on the carpet. My father was on the phone with the caterer. Lena was practicing her speech in the mirror in the hallway. "We are entering a new era," Lena was saying to her reflection, holding a hairbrush like a microphone. "An era of beauty, an era of care." I walked past her. She didn't see me. She only saw herself. I went to my room. I closed the door. The foundation was built. The trap was set. Now I just had to write the goodbye. The house was finally quiet. It was 2 a.m. on the day of the gala. My parents were asleep. Lena was asleep, probably dreaming of applause. I sat at my small desk in the corner of my room. This desk was the only thing I truly owned in this house. It was covered in scratches from when I was a teenager, studying for AP exams while Lena was out at parties. I turned on the small lamp. The pool of yellow light felt like a sanctuary. I took out the red envelope. It wasn't a standard envelope. It was thick, heavy cardstock. I had bought it specifically for this. Red for danger. Red for stop. Red for the blood that connects us, which they thought was enough to justify using me. I took out my fountain pen. The ink was black. I needed to write to Lena. I didn't want to write a letter that she could dismiss. If I screamed at her, she would call me hysterical. If I cried, she would call me jealous. If I listed facts, she would call me boring. I needed to write something that would haunt her. Something that, when she was sitting in the wreckage of the business next week, she would read and realize I had warned her. I uncapped the pen. My hand hovered over the paper. "Lena," I started. "By the time you read this, you will be holding a golden key. Dad will have just given a speech about how you are the future. Everyone will be clapping. You will feel like you have won. And you have. You won the title. You won the office. You won the photo on the wall. But I need to tell you what you didn't win." I paused. I looked out the window. The moon was high. I thought about the 10 years I spent walking the halls of Golden Oak, the smell of disinfectant, the sound of weeping families, the late nights fighting with insurance companies to get a wheelchair approved for a dying woman. You didn't win the system, Lena, because the system isn't in the building. It's in me. You see, Dad thinks a nursing home is real estate. Mom thinks it's a social club. You think it's a brand. It is none of those things. It is a machine. A complex, dangerous, heavy machine that keeps people alive. And for 10 years, I have been the oil in the gears. I have been the mechanic who sleeps by the engine to make sure it doesn't overheat. You looked at me and saw a worker bee. You saw someone boring. You saw a secretary. But a secretary doesn't write the code that bills Medicare. A secretary doesn't negotiate with the state attorney general when a compliance issue comes up. A secretary doesn't build a firewall around the liability so that the owners can sleep at night. I did those things. I built the harbor bridge. I took a breath. The words were flowing now. Simple, direct. Tonight I am taking the bridge with me. In this envelope you will find a list. It is not a list of passwords. It is a list of what is gone. 1. The compliance protocols are gone. 2. The vendor contracts are void. 3. The staffing algorithms are deleted. 4. The medical director is resigning. You wanted to be the leader. So lead, but you will have to lead without my map. You will have to steer without my rudder. You told me I had rough hands. You were right. My hands are rough because I have been carrying you, Dad, and Mom for a decade. I have been carrying the weight of your lifestyle, your beach house, and your vision. I am putting you down now. The weight is all yours. If you are as strong as you say, you will be fine. If your vision is real, it will sustain you. But if you were just standing on my shoulders the whole time, then you are going to fall. Good luck, Lena. You are the experience now. Sincerely, Avery. I signed it. I read it over. It was cold. It was calm. It was the truth. I folded the paper. The crease was sharp. I slid it into the red envelope. I didn't lick the seal. I used a sticker I had bought. A gold wax seal sticker. It looked official. I placed the envelope on the desk. Next to it I placed the ring of keys. There were 20 keys on the ring. The master key. The med room key. The office key. The server room key. They were heavy. Metal. Cold. Then, the final piece. The power of attorney revocation. I had already signed it. It was a legal document stating that I, Avery Miller, resigned as administrator of record and revoked any authority to act on behalf of Golden Oak Nursing and Rehabilitation. 3 items: the keys, the access, the document, the responsibility, the red envelope, the truth. I stared at them. They looked like an altar to my past life. I felt a strange sensation. It wasn't fear, it wasn't sadness. It was peace. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for them to notice me. I wasn't waiting for them to say good job. I was done waiting. I stood up and walked to my closet. I looked at the dress I was supposed to wear. My mother had picked it out. It was gray. Sensible, she had called it, so you don't clash with Lena. I took the gray dress off the hanger, I threw it on the floor, I reached into the back of the closet. I pulled out a garment bag I had hidden there. Inside was a dress I had bought for myself a week ago. It wasn't gray. It was navy blue, deep, dark blue, tailored, sharp. It looked like a suit of armor made of silk. It didn't look like a bridesmaid's dress. It looked like a CEO's dress. I would wear this. I wouldn't stand at the check-in table. I wouldn't hand out name tags. I would walk in. I would hand over the items. And I would walk out. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. I watched the sunrise. The sky turned from black to gray to pink. It was the day of the gala. The day of the Renaissance. Downstairs, the house began to wake up. I heard the coffee grinder. I heard my father's heavy footsteps. Big day, I heard him shout. Everyone up, we have history to make. I smiled at the ceiling. Yes, Dad, I whispered. We certainly do. The Marriott ballroom was freezing. It smelled like expensive perfume and old carpet. I arrived 10 minutes late. I did it on purpose. My mother hated lateness, but tonight I wasn't trying to be the good daughter. I walked into the lobby. My mother was standing near the registration table, holding a clipboard. When she saw me, her jaw dropped. She looked at my dress. It wasn't the gray, sensible dress she had picked out for me. It was navy blue. Deep, dark, and tailored. It didn't look like the dress of a helper. It looked like the dress of a CEO. Avery, she hissed, rushing over. What are you wearing? Where is the gray dress? And why aren't you behind the table? People are waiting for their name tags. I'm not working the table, Mom, I said. My voice was calm. What do you mean? She looked around nervously. Don't cause a scene. This is Lena's night. I know, I said. I'm just a guest. I walked past her into the ballroom. The room was full. 300 people, doctors, politicians, staff sat under gold balloons. A banner hung over the stage, Golden Oak, the Renaissance. I found my seat at the family table in the front. My parents and Lena sat in the center. I sat on the far edge. I placed my clutch bag on the table. Inside were the 3 items that would end their fantasy. The lights went down. My father walked onto the stage. He looked handsome in his tuxedo. Welcome, everyone, he boomed. Welcome to the future. He talked for 20 minutes about family values and care. He didn't mention the bankruptcy scares I fixed or the audits I survived. Then he smiled. But a company needs a spark, he said. Please welcome the new executive director, my daughter Lena Miller. Music played. Lena walked out in a gold sequined gown. She waved like a beauty queen. Thank you, Daddy, she said into the microphone. I am so honored. We are going to bring luxury to healthcare. No more boring hallways. We are going to have life. The crowd clapped. My father held up a box. To symbolize this transfer of power, he said, I present Lena with the key to the facility. It was a giant, fake key made of gold-painted foam. Lena squealed and held it up. I accept. That was my cue. I stood up. I didn't run. I walked straight toward the stage. My father saw me. He hissed, Avery, sit down. You're ruining the moment. I ignored him. I walked up the stairs and stood next to Lena. Avery, she said. What are you doing? I reached into my bag. First, I took out the heavy ring of real keys. The master key, the med room key, the server room key. I slammed them onto the podium. Clank. The real keys, I said clearly into the microphone. The room gasped. Second, I took out the blue folder. My resignation, I said, placing it on top of the keys. Avery, stop, my father shouted, stepping forward. You're drunk? I'm not drunk, I said. I'm done. Third, I took out the red envelope. I handed it to Lena. And this is the user manual. What is this? She whispered, looking scared. Open it. She tore the seal. She read the first line. Her face went pale. At that moment, Miss Rowan, my attorney, stood up from table 4. Excuse me, she announced, her voice sharp. I represent the Harbor Bridge Foundation. Who? My father squinted. Sit down. The Harbor Bridge Foundation, Miss Rowan continued, walking forward, is the legal owner of the compliance software and medical systems Golden Oak uses. Avery Miller has transferred all intellectual property to the foundation. She looked at my father. Since Avery is no longer administrator and new leadership is uncertified, the license to use the system is revoked. Effective immediately. My father laughed nervously. It's our computer system. We paid for it. You paid for the hardware, Miss Rowan said. Avery built the engine, and she just took the keys. The room went dead silent. The The staff at the back tables began whispering furiously. They knew exactly what Harbor Bridge was. They knew the facility couldn't run without it. Lena looked up from the letter. Her arrogance was gone. "Avery," she whispered into the mic. "You deleted the protocols, you're joking." "I didn't delete them," I said. "I locked them. You have the building, Lena, you have the gold key, but the building is empty." I stepped back. "Good luck with the vision," I said. I turned and walked down the stairs. "Avery," my mother screamed, "get back here, you ungrateful child." "Avery," my father shouted, "I command you to stop." I didn't stop. I walked down the center aisle. I felt Dr. Hale's eyes on me. He raised his glass in a silent toast. I pushed open the double doors. The cold air of the lobby hit my face. It tasted like oxygen. I walked out to the valet. "Car for Miss Miller?" "Yes," I said, "take me home." I got in my car. I didn't look back at the hotel. I didn't look back at the Renaissance. I drove into the dark, quiet night. The silence wasn't lonely. It was the sound of a burden being put down forever. I turned off my phone on Sunday. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't prepare payroll. I read a book in the park. On Monday morning at 9 a.m., I turned my phone back on. It vibrated in my hand for 5 full minutes. 74 missed calls, 42 voicemails, over 100 text messages. The first was from my mother. "How could you? You humiliated us. Everyone is asking if we're bankrupt." The second from my father, "Fix this now, or you are out of the will." The third from Lena, sent at 7:30 a.m., "The computer isn't working. It's asking for a password." "Avery, stop joking." "Give me the password." I didn't reply. I made tea. I knew exactly what was happening. I had designed the failure. At 7 a.m., the shift nurses clicked the Harbor Bridge icon. Instead of patient lists, they saw a black screen. License REVOKED. Please contact Harbor Bridge Foundation. System locked. They couldn't see who needed insulin. They couldn't bill Medicare. The engine had stopped. My father would be screaming at the IT guy. The IT guy would tell him, "It's not a bug. It's a remote lock. We don't own the software." At noon, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. My father, he looked disheveled, his tie loose. I opened the door. "Give me the password," he shouted, trying to push past me. I blocked the doorway. "Hello, Dad." "Don't hello me," he yelled. "You sabotage, you ungrateful snake. The nurses are writing on paper. It's the Stone Age. We can't bill anyone." "It's how it was before I built the system," I said calmly. "You said Lena was the future. Doesn't she have a plan?" "Lena is crying in the bathroom," he screamed. "She's a brand manager, not a computer genius. She doesn't know the codes." "It's not about computers," I said. "It's about compliance. Lena doesn't know the regulations. You don't know them. You relied on me. We are family." His voice broke, desperate now. "You don't do this to family." "You're right," I said. "Family doesn't demote their daughter to pay for the other one's vanity project. Family doesn't erase you from the brochure." He stopped, shocked that I was fighting back. "I will sue you," he whispered. "I will take everything." "You can try," I said. "Miss Rowan is waiting, but if you sue, the state will audit you immediately. Without my records, you will fail. You will lose the license entirely." He froze. He knew I held the skeletons. "What do you want?" he asked. "A raise, 10%, I laughed. It was a hollow sound. "I don't want a raise, I don't want the job." "Then what?" "I want you to leave me alone, figure it out, or fail." I closed the door. He pounded on it for 5 minutes, then left. The collapse was rapid. By Wednesday, state inspectors arrived, tipped off by a scared nurse. Lena tried to charm them with sketches of the yoga studio. They didn't care. They issued an immediate jeopardy citation, the death knell for a facility. They had 23 days to fix it or close. My mother called on Thursday, sobbing. "Avery, please," she cried. "The bank is calling the loan. We're going to lose the house, the beach house, everything." "I'm sorry, Mom. Just come back, we'll fire Lena, we'll make you the boss, just fix it." "I can't." "Why?" "Because you still don't get it," I said. "You're only calling because you're losing money. You don't miss me, you miss the maid." "That's not true." "It is true, and the maid has quit." I hung up. I blocked their numbers. I watched from the outside as the headlines hit the local paper. Golden Oak faces state sanctions. Family dynasty crumbles. It was painful but necessary. Meanwhile, my phone rang with real business. Other nursing homes had heard about the software war. They wanted the system that was so essential its absence destroyed a company. I started selling licenses. I started making my own money, real money. I was building something new. Something that was finally mine 6 months later. The leaves were turning gold. I sat in a downtown coffee shop, wearing a white blazer, meeting with a new client. I finally felt steady. Then a white transport van pulled up across the street. The side door opened. It was Lena. She wasn't wearing sequins. She wasn't wearing a suit. She was wearing cheap, wrinkled blue scrubs. Her hair was messy. She looked exhausted. She was pushing a wheelchair. It was Mr. Henderson. Golden Oak hadn't closed, but to save it, my father had been forced to sell 51% to a corporation. The new owners fired the management team immediately. They stripped the family out of the business. And Lena, if she wanted a paycheck, she had to work the floor. She was an aide now. She was doing the work I used to do at 12, wiping tables, pushing chairs, invisible. She struggled with the curb. The wheel got stuck. She wiped sweat from her forehead and looked up. She saw me through the glass. I froze. I expected her to scream or flip me off. But she didn't. She looked at my tailored blazer. She looked at my expensive laptop. Then she looked at her own hands. They were red and rough from washing. She gave me a small, tired nod. It wasn't an apology. Lena didn't know how to apologize. It was a surrender. She finally knew how heavy the wheelchair was. She finally knew that the glamour was a lie and the work was the only truth. I nodded back, one simple nod. She turned away and pushed Mr. Henderson down the street. "Avery," my client asked, "are you ready to sign?" I turned back to the table. "Yes, I'm ready." I took a sip of my coffee. I didn't feel the need to gloat. I just felt light. The invisible backbone had finally walked away. I was standing in the sun, holding my own weight, and it felt like peace.